Fellow Africans, since 1957, when Ghana gained independence, there has been quite a lot of political, social, economic indicators on the African.
There is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
66 years down the road, Africa finds itself with the first country, Ghana, having gained independence. We find ourselves still locked up, controlled, manipulated, instructed, logistically supplied, equipped by foreign powers that dictate our agenda. Africa is endowed with plenty of minerals, resources, good weather. The climate is so favorable for the growth of food enough to sustain us. But we find ourselves in countries where hunger is killing people. Hunger is killing people because most of the people have taken to arms to fight wars, conflicts. Starvation has taken the place of development. In most African countries like Sudan, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Nigeria, in Biafra, and north of Nigeria there is Boko Haram, Somalia in the Horn of East Africa. We have taken to conflict instead of development. Development was the key indicator. When Kwame Nkrumah vindicates Nyerere, Sekou Toure, and NASA, the founding fathers of our Pan-Africanism. The events happening in Central African Republic, in Congo, today as the war of rebels ranges on between the rebel and the rebels and the government and the rebels vindicates the founding fathers of this revolution. Our independence, therefore, was only on the paper. Our independence, therefore, was only in symbols. Our independence also was in signs. Our independence also was in boundaries. That we received our flags, but we never received full independence as by the word independence. Most of the 3/4 of African countries, French-speaking countries, have their budgets being done in Paris. Is that independence? The Paris government or the French government does its budgets based on how much they will get from African countries. Is that independence? Is this the Africa that you want? Is it the Africa that we must look at? Is it the Africa that we shall leave for the future generation? If the answer to you is yes, then so be it. But if the answer is no, you agree with me that this is not Africa we want to live for the future generation. Our generations and the future generation need to find a legacy. What is the legacy that Africa and African Union will leave for the future generation? The wars ranging in Libya, in South Sudan, in Khartoum, in Mogadishu, in DRC Congo, in Amazonia, in Cameroon, Boko Haram, Mali, in Mauritania, the uprisings in Algeria, all point to one thing, that yes, we are not yet independent. We are still controlled by external forces. Thank you. Nairobi, Kenya, and here, good morning from the Political Command Center in London. Thank you very much. This is Dr. David Matanga with the show, The African Voice. Today, we started very early, but because of technical hitches, most of the staff are not in on the premises, and therefore the operations at times become very, very, very difficult. But we are here to go. Thank you very much. This show is The African Voice, brought to you by Dr. David Matanga, the host, and myself alone as a host, plus two men who have been on this show from the beginning up to now. We have Wanda Wesonga. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Dr. Masanga. Good morning, my brother Daniel Wesonga. I'm happy to be back on the show after Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
it
looks like you ate very well. You are one of the few people still smiling with a smile. Most of the people now, you find them in the cars with their hands like this. They have put their hands here. And it is sad. Very, very sad. Yes. People have spent, when you spend and leave something for next year, it is going to be very hard in January. Everybody will be looking to kill each other, but don't kill each other. Don't fight each other. Domestic violence should not be accepted anywhere. Negotiate the terms God will provide. Good morning, Daniel Wesonga. Good morning, Daniel Wesonga. Good morning. Thank you very much. It looks that Daniel also went thinking that we had gone. But viewers, thank you very much. This is Punchline Africa Television. We were talking about the newspaper headlines that had actually started. I was starting the headlines of newspapers in the place, and here we are. The show is here. So that is all. Wesonga, Wanda, what stood out for you over Christmas? Tell us your story, the African Voice. How did the Africans in your village, wherever you were, I assume you went to the village?
No, I didn't.
So
the economy couldn't allow me to go there, as you had previously noted, that everything was commercialized. From Nairobi, the CBD of Nairobi, all the way to Kitale, it got to a point they were charging 3,500. But initially, we normally travel up country to that place with 800 shillings. Therefore, you can imagine it was not even 3 times. It was more than 3 times. Therefore, I was within. I didn't travel up country. I stayed indoors. Therefore, I don't have so much story to tell. But the few minutes that I was outside there, I realized that things were not. They were not the same as they've been some years back. I realized that so many persons hung around in Nairobi, different from the other periods when a good number of persons travels up country. The other thing that I noted in Nairobi or the areas that we stay, the haves are the ones that traveled. If you are keen and probably took note of the major highways, Nairobi, Nakuru, Eldoret Highway, we had so many personal cars that some even ended up people spending nights on the traffic. Therefore, they have not been to have so much to do. But equally, we thank God that 2022 Christmas was merry. People celebrated in their own capacity. And we thank God, and we are looking forward to 2023, with so much anticipation, so much energy that God will see us through, that everything will become a success, that we will finally see everything ticking. Dr. Masanga.
Thank you very much. Viewers across the continent of Africa, thank you. We still have a hiccup.
Yes.
You have a hiccup?
I do. In fact, I've written to you on your personal WhatsApp.
Yeah, you are not hearing me.
No, I can hear you, but on my laptop, I've tried to get live on the Punchline Africa TV, but it keeps loading. I can't see the live show.
Okay, I will send you the link, which you can see the live show. Wonder.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you'll get the link, both of you. You have the link now. There you are. Thank you very much. Sorry about these inconveniences because we are technically doing it ourselves, but that is the link that you can now see us without any hassle coming from any point. You can see us directly. We are available. Yeah, that's the link now. That is the link that you can see. Use it anywhere. So thank you very much, viewers. There we are set to go now. Thank you very much, all of you. Wanda, you are saying things where it was for well to do only. What happened?
Yeah, like when you took note of the major highway in Kenya that connects Nairobi to the upcountry, that is the Nairobi-Nakuru highway all the way to Eldoret, then others, or to Molo, then others could branch to the Kisumu as other proceed on to Eldoret, all the way to Kitale, then finally the western part of Kenya. Now, the traffic normally gets busy when you're almost heading to Nakuru, or when you are heading to Nakuru town. The key thing that I noted is that personal cars were the ones that were very many. The passengers' cars were not as many as compared to personal cars. Therefore, to me, this the quick analysis that I picked from that 2022 Christmas was made for the haves. The have-nots in the society did not celebrate as they are used to. Now, when you get back now to Nairobi and you go to Uhuru Park that was open to people, then you realize we had so many people in Uhuru Park. Still, that confirms further that individual persons that are considered as have-nots did not have so much to spend. In that case, they decided to stay in Nairobi. Now, when you look at that middle class that are not the have-nots and they are not the haves, then you go to Mombasa, the public beach. Then you realize we had so many people that were there. Very few people could afford to go to private beaches. That still tells me that 2022 Christmas, things were not merely for the have-nots and the middle class, but instead things were okay to the haves in the society. Dr. Masanga.
So in short, you did not celebrate the birth. Usually in African culture, we celebrate the birth of a child.
Yes.
So in these circumstances, the birth of a child in your country, Kenya, was celebrated in a gloomy way, There were no, yes, there were no festivals. People ate very little. People did not call their friends. How many people called their friends? Let's listen from Daniel. Daniel seemed to have called so many friends because he's the one of the halves, the halves who went all the way to Kisumu. And Daniel, tell us what was the experience on the road from Nairobi up to Kisumu so far.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masanga. And I will say the rush and the buzz that was on the roads was a bit crazy, as my brother Wanda Wesonga has talked about it. You know, we had quite a very, very busy time on the road. You know, the traffic was quite crazy. And I remember, you know, something that came of by a surprise is a kind of traffic snarl-up that was between Ahero Junction, the road that connects Homa Bay, Kisii, Migori County to Kisumu. You know, we had a very, very huge traffic in that, Dr. Masanga. People spent over 12 hours on the same spot. You know, cars could not move. People who were there from 2 in the afternoon were able to reach Kisumu city after 12 hours, you know, for over a stretch of around 20 kilometers. So that was a bit crazy, and that explains whatever my good brother, Professor Wanda Wesonga, has talked about it, that we had a lot of people who could afford, you know, to fuel their cars going to the village, you know, to enjoy Christmas, what my good brother has called the halves. But also on the other side, we also had people who are using the buses. We also had people who are using the train. Remember, we have a train all the way from Nairobi to Kisumu County, and from there, most of the train passengers are able to take buses to other places in the Lake Basin region. So that was the kind of scenario. However, also, Dr. Masanga, notably enough, unlike the other Christmases where you will come back to the city and you find nearly all the parking lots are empty, this time round, I was really, really amazed that most of the people around the city were actually, you know, just in their houses, spending Christmas in the city and all that. That really tells you that it might have not the best of the Christmas that we've had in the recent past, and that could be due to the biting economic times that are being experienced here in Kenya and also across the globe. So to me, I think only those who could afford to go to the village actually managed it. And most of them actually, I believe they did it out of sacrifice, because the economic times are really, really hard. You know, if you could use maybe, let's say, like 10,000 shillings for fuel, maybe from here to Kisumu, today you have to do more than a half of that again to be able to go comfortably and come back. So it has really, really become expensive. And I believe it has really changed the way Kenyans used to celebrate Christmas. In a few years back, if you will come to Nairobi, you will barely find anybody in Nairobi, you know, in the streets and all that. But yesterday I was very, very much, you know, surprised to see that people are everywhere, including major malls. You know, people are continuing to do their work and all that. You know, like it is not Christmas. So that is something which is very, very spectacular. Something that is quite uncommon with the Kenyan way of doing things. Also, while I was in Mashinani, I saw that, you know, people were very, very eager to go back to their work, especially the farmers. When the rains actually came, they were in a rush to go and cultivate their farms. That really tells you that, you know, there's something that these people are pursuing. And we know in the recent past, we've been having some spate of droughts, and the rainfall has not been easy to come by. So perhaps people are also in a rush to go and be able to cultivate their farms. Initially, you know, in the past Christmases or maybe festive seasons, people will not be in a hurry to go back to their farms to till their land when they had not even crossed the new year. So that really tells you that the economic times have been really, really tough on people, and people are more concerned on how they'll be able to beat that harsh economic times and be able to put bread on their table, other than going even in the village to enjoy and party and be able to catch up with family, Dr. Masanga. I submit.
Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much. My two panelists have seen the experience that I want to tell you that some of us did not even move. We didn't want to move from the location to one location. While you are seeing that type of experience in Kenya, here it is the opposite. The misery in London, the misery in the UK is huge. I don't think very many people, likely you are being hampered by resources, by money. But here you are hampered by conditions, by weather conditions. You can't go out, you can't visit relatives. The trains, some of them were stopped. The nurses were not working. Ambulances were not working. Look at the situation, what a contrast. In your place, everybody was working. What was lacking in Kenya was money. But here, what was lacking is the weather conditions. It was bad, cold, and then added with that, the police and the television stations are warning you, don't go out if it's not necessary. Don't go and visit people if it's not necessary. Stay at home, stay in your house, engage your people, maybe cook your food, eat it from the house. So the basic thing that goes on as an African voice is, has Christmas been commercialized? Can I start with Rwanda? We have talked about this before. Has Christmas been commercialized? Has it become a commercial venture that people make money out of the birth of Jesus Christ and make a kill? Because everywhere, hotels in Kenya, some of them were charging 70,000 shillings a night. 70,000 shillings a night. And look, even if you say you want to eat, you can't start eating from morning up to evening. Which stomach is that? That will eat food from every angle. 70,000. And then the aircrafts, the transfers, the air by air, those who came. So I'm told the ports of Mombasa were full, the airports were full, but here there was something very different. Luggage delays, passenger delays, queues and queues, a long queue of about 2 kilometers, zigzagging within the airport in order to reach the terminal to depart. Planes were delayed. The weather wasn't so good at all here up to now, but hopefully it will release us a new year and the people will go to Trafalgar Square in London to make it. Rwanda, we have talked about commercialization of Christmas. My brother, is this thing commercialized beyond a level of an ordinary Christian?
Very true, and it is very sad that we Christians hold so dear Jesus Christ, and we hold so dear the teachings and the doctrine that comes with Jesus Christ. Now, instead of celebrating in humbleness, in realization that Jesus Christ was born in a manger, in simplicity, but instead we go ahead and commercialize the events that leads to the celebration of Jesus Christ, which is very, very, very wrong. That on 10th December, I traveled from Nairobi to Kitale using the private cars, their private stroke PSVs. I only spent 1,200 shillings to travel from Nairobi to Kitale. That was on 10th. On 16th, I traveled back to Nairobi. I ended up spending, now from Eldoret to Nairobi, I ended up spending 1,200. Now, when I traveled from Nairobi to Kitale, I had spent 1,200. That was on 10th. 16th, I traveled back to Nairobi from Eldoret, and I still spent 1,200. But when I go to Nairobi, I realized that transport from Nairobi to Kitale or to Eldoret was actually 1,800. But traveling from Kitale all the way, from Eldoret to Nairobi was 1,200. 2 days later, that was on our 16th. 2 days later, it hiked to 2,500. Few days later, it was 3,500. Therefore, we have commercialized the birth of Jesus Christ. We have forgotten the simplicity that Jesus Christ was born. We have forgotten the teachings. We have forgotten quite a lot. And we have ended up commercializing or turning everything into business. Chances are that the beaches in Mombasa, the private beaches are probably a bit expensive than they're supposed to be, or based on their tradition. That's why people are flocking into the public one. Therefore, it is sad, as you're putting it, things have been commercialized. We have forgotten the simplicity. We have forgotten that the master was born in a manger to mean the simplicity, but instead of making it even more simple, more simple, we have made it very expensive. Dr. Masanga.
Thank you very much. There is one point that you have made. Jesus was born in a simplistic way, in a manner that he did not care about where he was born. He did not create a class struggle. Why have we created a class struggles? A class struggle on earth to buy a new shirt, to buy a new trouser, to buy a new dress. If you don't bring this dress to the wife's neck will break while looking at that side. What is going on here in Africa? Africans, are we, as a voice of Africa, surely I feel so much, very much attached to defense of my continent. Have we taken Christmas out of proportion? That even the people themselves, where religion started from, don't do certain things. Have we, instead of turning Christmas into a gain for the people, we have turned Christmas into a siphoning era, a point where the meat, 1 kilo, goes to 2, instead of, if it was 500, it is double to 200, 700, 800 per kilo. We are siphoning from the poor. That even in the churches themselves, some churches, I'm told, in Africa, another friend of mine from Cameroon, from Nigeria, told me one of the churches even put there how much money each Christian was supposed to pay. They said it was 20 naira each, 20,000 naira. So you don't have even 1 naira to buy Coca-Cola. And then you are told that if you come to this church, some churches even started leveling the amount of money. So the commercial aspect of it, Daniel, what do you think about it?
Thank you so much, Dr. Masanga, David. And of course, my good brother, Professor Wanda Wesonga, has put the right perspective about what Christmas has become for us Africans. And of course, over a period of time, Dr. Masanga, you've been always critical about Christmas and the way we Africans celebrate Christmas. And Professor Wanda Wesonga has brought in, the biblical, analogy of how Jesus was born in a manger, which signifies that we should actually go out there during the Christmas celebration with the humility and be able to extend a helping hand. Remember, Jesus was born in a manger in someone else's compound, because everywhere they went to find maybe a guest house to sleep, it was actually entirely full. And maybe like what is happening in Kenya today, if you come to Kenya today, just like it were in Bethlehem, it is here in Kenya, where when you go even in the rural areas, the guest houses are all full. You go to Mombasa, they're all full. The only difference is that, Dr. Masanga, like you mentioned, they have actually hiked the prices of everything. You go to Mombasa and the prices are crazy. You go to Masai Mara, the prices are crazy. And it's only because it is Christmas. So it really beats logic that in a time where people should be celebrating, the birth of Christ and be, acting in humility and in generosity, it is actually a season where we've turned it to be a season of largesse and, extravagance, where everything is done to the extreme. You will find out that even people who do not take alcohol, it is during Christmas they actually drink in excess. You will find that people who do not indulge in, certain things, they take that opportunity now to indulge in that during Christmas, and they do it in excess. And Dr. Masanga, there is a certain, notion that people are always broke in January. Why is that the scenario? From an economic point of view, Dr. Masanga, I believe, one, it is because of the hiked cost of commodities and services that people go ahead to spend a lot of their money on that we always have a broke society in January. Two, it is just the extravagance that people have, that let me spend a lot in December, people party like there is no tomorrow. They even eat like there is no tomorrow. You find a family of 5, they want to eat a whole goat. On top of that, we have like 5 chickens. We have, 2 packets of chapati, 5 packets of mandazis and all that. And you realize that in the subsequent days after Christmas and the New Year, food will be poured and all that. But in January, just a few days after Christmas, you find that people are actually sleeping hungry in some homes. Then it really beats logic and wisdom that we are doing all this just to celebrate Christmas without thinking that after Christmas, we might be lacking the things that we are overspending, the things that we are throwing. We are spoiling season. So I think, Dr. Masanga, sometimes as a society, we miss out the point of Christmas, and we perceive it as a period in time where we should do everything to the extreme. We should take our extravagance a notch higher. We should take our drunkenness. We should take, even the food we eat to a notch higher level, where we have some kind of wastage in in everything that we do. And there is a very, very famous quote that I've liked most recently, where I've seen most people say, as you celebrate Christmas, let Christ be the reason for the season. But unfortunately, the birth of Christ is not the reason for the season. We've made our own, our own entrappings, our own, things that are actually procedures to be the reason for the season. Things like going out on extravagant trips, going out on drinking sprees, going out, eating everything that is presented on the table, and all that, just wasting everything. And, I believe that Christmas should be a moment in time where people remember the less fortunate in the society. Like you see Muslims during Eid and all the other Islamic celebrations, they will actually prepare a lot of food. But in doing so, they will invite the less fortunate in the society to be able to eat together, celebrate, and be able to commemorate the day. But what do Christians do? For us, it's all about ourselves. Like Dr. Masanga said, and like my good brother, Professor Wanda Wesonga said, we always focus on self. That is why someone will want to buy themselves a very, very expensive piece of cloth, during Christmas. That is why someone will want to spend a lot of money on an extravagant trip, maybe outside the country during Christmas, rather than, focusing on the less fortunate, focusing on sharing with the society, sharing with the community. Most of us, from where we come from, in the villages, we have a lot of many, disadvantaged families that are still, in abject poverty. But you will never see someone doing a big shopping and maybe just distributing it in packages to these families. Rather, They will rather drive big cars so that these villagers can come and really marvel at these big cars and all that. So that is what Christmas has become, carrying, their kids to the villages so that the village kids can be able to come and watch the kind of bicycles, the kind of gadgets they are using and all that. So to me, I think we must, as Africans, change the perspective of Christmas. And Dr. Masanga, during the introductory part of the show, you mentioned about the situation in London. And I believe that is the situation even in most parts of the West, where people take Christmas with a lot of simplicity. It's not about the bars in the marketplaces and big malls where, people may make merry and go to the extreme ends of it. It's all about, a time to reflect about the birth of the Messiah, and also sharing with the community and just reflecting upon how the year has been and how to move forward and how to assist one another. So to me, I believe as Africans, we must reevaluate the essence of Christmas and be able to make the birth of Christ to be the reason for the season. I submit, Dr. Masanga.
One of our viewers who has been there with us for the last 6 years, and for me, I'm still wearing my old shirt. I have not changed my shirt. I think when Song and Wanda, this is a shirt that I had 1 year ago, and I am still in it, although very expensive. I don't want to tell you a lie. I use it for my Christmas, not only one, several of them. And I buy them, but I don't buy new things on Christmas. I don't buy new things on New Year because I move on with what I have. When I buy my shoes, I don't buy too many pairs of shoes. Pay one pair of shoes. If it is finished, I go for another one. I don't know why people go and buy 10 pairs of shoes. You can't wear both of them at a go. It's like driving 10 cars. You can't drive 10 cars at a go. You drive only one car. And for me, as David, I always tell people the truth that a necessity has no rule. If it is necessary to jump into a pit latrine on Friday, on Sunday, you jump to get what you want. But don't force things which out, leave them. Let God work on some of the things for you. But I am shocked that some people at times want to make things look very, very, very difficult. That God, if God has not arranged for me to have what I want to have, I cannot force myself to be in that place. Until God says, go there, then I will go. I will not buy something that I cannot afford. This is me. And that's the way I sit. That's the way I do my things. My shirts are old, not old, but they are the old stock that I have. Luckily enough, they fit me. Some are extra big because of loss. I've lost a bit of weight, not a bit, huge weight. So that's okay. But why do you buy expensive watch when you are going to have school fees to pay? Wanda Wesonga, because you still have children to pay school fees for. At least for me, I had a last child to pay school fees for, who has finished her master's degree in King's College in London. And she passed very well with first honors class, not anything less than that. So that one, and then I was struggling with a degree in Roehampton University and COVID. During the COVID days, things became difficult. So I struggled Wanda, I have also finished a strategic management master's degree number 3, number 4 actually, because there is the original one, BA honors first class, another one. So I added there another one here to make sure that in strategic management, when we want to take over African Union, nobody can challenge me that I don't have strategic management skills of handling an African Union. African Union must be repossessed in 2023. That is my aim. We must get African Union working. We must have Africa have a voice. We can't have Africa where people are paying Ukraine $1.85 billion and Africa is just being told, move and support Ukraine. How long have we been asking for this money? Therefore, 2023, all those who want to go along with Dr. Matsanga, when I want to come to recapture African Union, I have the necessary tools, the necessary age, the necessary exposure as a candidate for the African Union post. People have been keeping quiet. You don't need to be a foreign minister in order to become AU chairperson. This should not be there. This is not for dynasty operations. African Union must allow us to become, we must select an African Union, a radical secretary general, who knows what African Union and Pan-Africanism is. We made a very terrible mistake. And we Africans kill ourselves every day. You don't need to be a foreign minister to apply. That is rubbish. We must scrap such obnoxious. Allow every African who is qualified, who can speak, who knows the dates when African Union was set, who started it, the dates of all African heads of state. If you took me with Muhammad Faki and you put these telephones away and told us, stand on the platform and recite the dates of independence for all African Union countries, I'm telling you, I will beat him flat out and walk over his head and come back to Kampala with the title. Yes, he doesn't know. How do you select an African Union chairperson who doesn't know, who has to Google to find out, oh, Kenya got independence. This. No, Matsanga knows them. Why do you deny me a chance on while I'm on earth that I should lead my African Union, have an African voice, a voice that will speak, and you are telling me, Morocco, give guns, tanks. Morocco, you people, look at you. I told you Morocco was not part of you. And some of you here were celebrating with that Morocco. Wapi nyenye? Where are you now? I hope none of you here on the platform were celebrating in Morocco. Muniambie. Tell me. Morocco now is a stepping stone for America to bring us a war, a proxy war on this continent. You are paying a country $5 billion. The country is telling us that it is opening more embassies on African Union. So we are collecting money to Ukraine, and the president of Ukraine is announcing that he's going to build more embassies on African continent. Why don't you rebuild Ukraine, which has been devastated by war? This is just blackmail and allowing us into a proxy war that we never are part and a parcel
off. I landed the mic. Wonder.
No, when Dr. Masanga, you mentioned AU and brings in some political history, you invoke the spirit in me to talk about it even more, because the major problem that we have been having as a continent, that when our leaders, these are the national leaders, are campaigning to take position either as a president, they come with a manifesto for their nation. That this president comes to the manifesto on how they will build Liberia, how they will build Ethiopia, how they will build Kenya, all, cut across. Then this person whose manifesto was to build a specific nation is imagined that will now build a continent. I don't know where this one came from, that this person applied for a job to build a certain room, just a room. Then, because he has been given the mandate to build that room, you end up giving this person a story building and tell this person, now take care of this story building, build it. This person does not have the qualification to build that story building, but instead, he only asked to build a specific room. Mistake to give presidents of African countries the mandate to chair the African Union, because they only asked to be given a mandate to grow their nations. And in this case, this person's mindset is only looking at a nation. And I will not be surprised when our leaders, when given this position, they forget about the entire Africa, but look into the regional positioning and specific nations. We are pushing them to do what is not what they asked us to give them a mandate to do. And if I'm told, I look into one good example of our own that we hold with high esteem, we even call him Baba. Raila Odinga is the AU High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa. This is not, he's not into the the leadership bit in the sense that he's a leader of a certain country, but he's having such a position. And therefore that tells us that it's possible that we now have specific persons that are Pan-Africanist in nature to hold now the leadership of African Union, then grow the continent so that specific president grows their nations, but specific leaders and specific structures grows the continent as a whole. Therefore, when Dr. Masanga, you now present such an idea that will want to take a leadership position in African Union, I feel good. I feel like finally we'll now have individuals that will not want to grow specific nations, but individuals that will now want to grow the entire nation. Dr. Masanga.
Sorry, Doc, you are muted.
Dr. Masanga?
Sorry, you are muted, Dr. Masanga.
Maybe just to add one, as probably is on attending to something else. But when you look into Africa, then you try to imagine the conflict that we're having in Congo, the conflicts that we have in cut across, the riches, that is the natural riches that we're having as a continent, that we have never had the AU the AU leadership, the structures of AU and the leadership of AU coming in to look into how do we then ensure that security security is boosted or security is okay in Africa, that we are not having the leader now coming in to look into how do we brand the African, the African products, that how do we then promote the African market and exploit the African market. But instead, it's very easy and quite common to get a few leaders talking about, I want our economy to get to this level. You will get another country talking about how powerful they have become. You look at another country pointing a finger at a different country. And at the same time, we go the mantle of African Union, imagining that now this person will forget about his own nation or our own nation, then promote the whole agenda of Africans. Therefore, I completely agree and buy into the vision of Dr. Masanga that 2023 will want to get himself involved in the leadership of African Union. So probably before Dr. Masanga comes in, my brother Daniel, you can chip in.
Thank you so much, my good brother, Professor Wanda Wesonga. And I totally agree with you on that particular note, that, even the African Union itself, in regards to offering leadership, through the heads of states and, other leaders, who are in leadership positions, has not been able to really foment a formidable force to be able to bring any positive change in regards to the African continent. And even more so, it has not been able to even the conflicts that have been happening across Africa. You can look at the conflict in DR Congo. You can look at the conflicts in South Sudan. You can look at the conflict in Somalia. You can look at the conflict, the most recent one in the Ethiopian Tigray region, the conflict in Mozambique, Cabo Delgado. You can look at the conflict in West Africa, Central Africa Republic, and the entire Sahel region. It has not been able to do as much. But to the contrary, also maybe when you look comparatively to bodies like ECOWAS, they have been able to actually take control of the region that they hold jurisdiction in. So I agree with you that, if we have to have maybe such kind of leadership, then it must not be anchored on maybe the leaders who are in the helm of power, but we must anchor that on the spirit of Pan-Africanism. People who are willing to serve the continent of Africa, people who are able to hold the culture, the morality, and the virtues of the African people. But above that, we must also have people who are able to negotiate for the African continent on the global arena, not just leadership that is going to be playing, as a puppet to the West or any other international, superpowers. In that, when you are called to these international forums, you are not called on the table to be able to also project your views, but you are called there to be given orders on what is expected of you, like we saw with the US African Summit. So to me, I believe that can only be achieved if we can have leaders who know whatever African wants and whatever will be able to turn around the economic, wellness and soundness of the African continent. Anything other than that, I believe we'll just be going back to the previous, cyclical way of doing things in Africa, where we have so much, very, very, very much auspicious plans, beautiful speeches, and, very robust, conversation about making Africa great. But when it comes to now putting, everything into reality, that is where now the point of departure comes in, where we deviate from the African vision. So I believe that if we can have African leaders who are more focused on practical things, in making sure that the things they discuss are the things that are done, then we might be able to see maybe such an initiative taking root. But above all, we need people with a Pan-African mindset. I submit. Doc, you seem to be muted.
You continue talking. Yes, so we were on the subject. I was on a very serious international call from my country called UNOIT. Are we together?
Yes,
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so there was a call that came in. I'm sorry to have actually muted, but I left you and I'm making serious points. Let's get ourselves African Union back. Let's have the African Union working. Let's advocate for a new voice, a voice that can say no, enough is enough. You are giving Ukraine money. You are giving Africa promises. You see, Mr. Biden, in 2 years, he might not be the president. He will be the former president of the United States. So where will you chase him to ask him for the money you promised us in the 3 years? If another person comes to power, he will change the foreign policy. So does Africa know? They hurt the people. You waste the money going to beg the people whose policy will change. Okay, thank you very much. Unless you have a comment on that, Daniel, you have had your say. Daniel, did you have your say on AU?
To me, Dr. Matsanga, I believe AU is as dead as a dodo, you know, a very moribund organization, an organization that has never been to the interest of the African people. Rather, it has been changing hands between China, France, the US, and other Western powers. And whoever is at the helm of the AU, the record, is someone who was hoisted by the French, you know, and is someone who plays to the tune of those who brought him to that particular seat. And that is why the AU has been quite ineffective. To me, Dr. Matsanga, I believe the AU ended with the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of Sekou Toure, the likes of Milton Apollo Obote, the likes of Jomo Kenyatta, the likes of Gamal Abdel Nasser, and latest, the people who had Africa at heart, the likes of Muammar Gaddafi, who was unfortunately and sadly brought down by the same people who have held the AU captive for all these years. So therefore, I believe we might have, you know, people who are strong and staunch Pan-Africanists, like you are, Dr. Matsanga, like more, you know, people like President Emerson Mnangagwa. We have people who believe in the African, the Africanism of our continent. However, for the AU, it is just a title. The only African thing about the AU is actually its name. Without the name African Union, there's nothing more about Africa that is in AU, because it does not advocate for the African interest, not even seek to address the historical problems of the African people. Rather, it seeks to address the interests of the West. It does not even act on the best interest of the African people. It is there to actually seek sympathy from the West and to move around the other continents, you know, and other developed worlds, begging, you know, for aid to be able to run its own, you know, its own programs. However, it has never been able to lend a hand even for the African people. You saw that when COVID was hitting the continent for the first time, the AU had no plan, neither did it have any strategy to be able to shield the continent against a looming pandemic. So therefore, to me, Dr. Matsanga, AU is just a useless body, a body that is there to really benefit the people who sit in its corridors with, you know, free foreign trips, you know, sitting in Addis Ababa in posh hotels, enjoying some good liquor and, you know, having all those goodies that come with being a member, an executive member of the AU. But when it comes to delivering on the promises, delivering on the agenda and the visions of the African continent, to me, AU has done beyond the bare minimum. So I don't think there is any body there when you talk about the AU. The AU is a moribund organization, and it doesn't speak for the African continent for the last time I checked. And therefore, we have more effective bodies like the East African Community, we have ECOWAS, we have SADC, which, with a lot of shame, I'll admit, shouldn't be overshadowing AU in the way they do their work, but the AU should actually be a leader, showing all these other small bodies on how to handle conflicts in Africa, how to handle famine, how to handle the issues surrounding integration, how to handle issues, matters security and fighting global terror. But unfortunately, AU is just a big boys club, It is just a place where people go to massage their grandiose and be able to enjoy the parks. But when it comes to doing the work, they don't actually deliver. I will say it's actually a common league for ghost workers, because today, if you were to ask me any major project that the AU has done, that is impactful to the African people, then I'll tell you there is none. If today you were to ask me any peace process that the AU has been able to lead successfully in Africa, then I'll tell you there is none. AU started long time ago, going into conflict zones, trying to pacify the regions, the most tumultuous regions in Africa. If you to ask me of any region, the AU was actually able to pacify, and eventually we were able to see a white flag, and we were able to see troops, the AU troops, celebrating with the people in the streets, now telling and assuring residents that now peace has been restored. You can come back and live and be able to work and be able to earn a living. There is none, Dr. Matsanga. So to me, I believe AU is non-existent. It is only existent in our minds, but the body is not there. It died long time ago when our nationalist leaders departed from the helm of leadership, and some died, that was when we actually, all the aspirations about the African Union were able to dissipate. And therefore today, whatever we have is actually Pan-Africanist. People who go out of their way, like yourself, Dr. Matsanga, using sometimes even their own resources to just drive the African agenda without the support of the AU, without the support of some of the busybodies who parade themselves as the people who speak for the African continent. So, Dr. Matsanga, in that regard, I don't think there's AU. I submit.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Wanda. And thank you very much, Daniel. AU seem to have got a thrashing at the end of year. Remember, we have 3 days to end, and we must sharpen our voice as Africans. Africa next year will have elections, about 4 elections in 4 countries, I think. Zimbabwe, another one is where? There is Zimbabwe, which is very, very, which is vibrant. Everybody is watching. There are 4 countries that I'll do my research again. There are 4 countries that are going to have elections next year. And the next year is a do or die for a country like Zimbabwe. Let's look. Has been able to achieve. If you look at Zimbabwe today, the achievement that they have, the achievement that Zimbabwe has made since 2017 are great. The roads, the construction, the change of many things, the space, the briefing space for democracy. new democratic dispensations, newspapers writing, criticizing, the vibrant media, which writes everything up to the bedroom, the type of the fight against corruption. Let's look at one of the clips. I don't know whether there are pictures coming right now from Mogadishu. As we speak, that the President Gulay, Ismail Omar Gulay of Djibouti is arrived or has arrived or is about to arrive in Somalia capital, Mogadishu. And there are pictures of people waving, waiting, cleaning the roads in preparation for his arrival. This is a very, very, very important visit. And we pray to Almighty God that he arrives, inspects, goes to Somali Villa. That's the news coming from Mogadishu at the moment. Another thing that has caught my ear or my eye is the resumption of Ethiopian Airways has resumed its flight to Mekelle. Tigray, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's all say thank you very much for this. Ethiopian Airlines has resumed flights, commercial flights to Mekelle. We want to take this opportunity to thank President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta for having, together with Obasanjo, together with South African deputy, former president, who stood out and came out, an international community and ourselves, who have been at the forefront, talking about Ethiopia, talking about the war in Tigray, talking about the killings, talking about humanitarian access to Tigray. The voice of Africa still remains that we don't want wars on our continent. Wars take us back. Wars reverse us. Wars take us out. Wars bring more misery. I want to say thank you very much, former presidents and the vice president, for having been there for the people of Ethiopia and the rest of Africa and the international community, especially the Italians. I want to thank the Italians who have been behind the scenes, making sure that this peace process in Ethiopia goes through successfully. Commercial flights and commercial activities, reconstruction of that capital, Mekelle, and other places. I am very, very, very impressed this morning. Thank you very much. 28th of December, 2022. I am the happiest guy. I have been on this platform. I have brought up Twitter spaces, about 10 of them talking about Tigray and Ethiopia. I have been hated, and due to so many things, I remain the same man all the time. Here, telling you that I have not given up. My journey to make sure there is a better Africa is still on. My courage is emboldened. My courage is encouraged. My encouragement comes from people like Lenin. Remember, Lenin said, those who despair are the people who don't know the cause. But once you know the cause, you don't despair. You don't give up until you fulfill your mission of making sure that there's a better Africa. And that is me. I will not despair. I have bottlenecks. I have a lot of obstacles. I have challenges of financial, which people, no Africa country can help you to fight for Africa. But I still make one step all the time to make sure that we are still here and talk about Africa. But look at this. One thing that happened this year is that Mr. Paul Obiya can never go. Mr. Paul Obiya will never go, can never step in the United Kingdom. He can go to America, but not the United Kingdom. Because once Mr. Paul Obiya steps in the United Kingdom, I have managed, and I managed to put an application in the judicial system, in the courts in the United Kingdom, waiting for Mr. Paul Obiya to answer as to why he should not be to answer the summons, to answer the warrant that wants him, that someone says, come and tell the court why be in jail for the gross misconduct of killing, maiming, abuse of human rights, like we did it to Pinochet. I am telling you, my lawyers, I want to thank you, Chief Charles Taku, and others of international repute. We have done this, and we have saved Mr. Can go to Switzerland, no problem, but you not come to United Kingdom as long as we are there, as long as this paper is lying in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much. Is that not worth that Wanda and Daniel, why I am here? I speak my mind, I go and make it happen. Mr. Paul Obiya, you can rule Cameroon as hard as you want. You can continue to do what you are doing. But my brother, listen, Mr. Cameroon, the moment you try to get a flight into United Kingdom, we shall get you. Thank you. Any comments? Wanda?
Indeed, your contributions to the continent is beyond the use of just mere words to appreciate or to commend what you keep doing. Like, I'm really moved, and I'm still moved by this African Union and the need to change. You know, I was looking at how these other organizations work, these other groupings work. Then I was surprised that the European Union, the president of that union, is not the leader of any country in the union. Just a politician or just a leader from, that shows that he or she holds the interest of the region at heart. Therefore, what you keep doing is so great. And it's, I don't know what kind of leaders we have that they look at such groups like European Union, then look at them as powerful unions that are doing quite well, but they can't sit down and buy, and just emulate what they're doing. Just emulate the structure of leadership, how the leaders, how they get the leaders and all those things. That you just cannot hold someone. Today you cannot hold liable a leader or a chair of African Union to begin with. Who will hold him liable? Therefore, what you're doing to the continent is quite great. And we pray that so soon you come, your vision of African Union will come to a realization, will come to a success. And that will be a beginning of the greatness of a continent. Doctor.
Thank you very much, Wanda Wesonga. Let me hear from Daniel Wesonga. Daniel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masanga David. And of course, I always refer to you as the silent undertaker of the African continent, or the move and shake of the African continent, because the work you do mostly is behind the scene, and it always comes out with a big impact to the African continent. You will never go out there to brag about what you do behind the scenes, but at least for those of us who know the kind of work you do, the amount of correspondence, the kind of letters, for the kind of conditions you put out there for the people who have wanted to take Africa for granted is quite immense, and your contribution always, is quite straight to the point, and you always go for your target. I will say you always shoot without blinking. So to me, Dr. Matsanga, that is what Africa needs. And my good brother, Professor Wanda Wesonga, said that we should emulate other continents. You should emulate other countries on how, they defend, their own interests, how they defend their own people. If you look out for the state of Israel, for example, you see how the Israeli people, how the lobbyists stand with the state and how they defend, the country amidst, criticism even globally. That is the same way we should be able to defend Africa. And for us as an African continent, we actually have a lot to lose if we do not do so, because we have a lot of our resources which are being siphoned out of the. We have a lot of our, labor, in terms of brain drain, which is being taken out of the continent. And therefore, if we do not speak out, then we are losing out on a lot, Dr. Matsanga. And it's a good thing that we have people like you. We have a couple of others scattered across the African continent who can be bold enough to be able to air out the issues that no one will dare touch about, which nonetheless have a great impact on the African continent. So this is a wake-up call to the African Union to look around the world, to see whatever the Arab League is doing in the Middle East, to see what the European Union is doing in the West, and look back at home and be able to implement the same and be able to wake up and be able to work for the African people. Otherwise, Dr. Matsanga, mine is to just thank you and many other Africans who have been able to boldly speak out for the African continent, and also to remind the African, the AU, that the kind of work that that your kind is doing, the people like you, Dr. Matsanga, are doing, that is what the AU should actually be doing. If they are not paying you to do that, then it's quite a big shame for them. If they're not supporting you, to do that, to advocate and to lobby like you've been doing on most topical issues on the African continent, then it's quite a big shame on them, Dr. Matsanga. I submit.
Thank you very much. Finally, as we come to a close, we would like to take this opportunity to say what you anticipate, what you think Africa will look like as a voice of Africa. What you want, which type of Africa you want. I will begin with you, Wanda Mwalimu. What Africa do you want in 2023? An Africa free of poverty, an Africa free, don't tell me, what Africa do you want?
Thank you so much. Number one, this is the kind of Africa that I want. I'll start with the leadership aspect. I want the African leadership where the leaders of Africa are not restricted to thinking about themselves, their families, but the leadership that looks at the whole picture, that looks at their subjects entirely, that looks at their citizens. The leadership that will not pick political competition to mean enmity, then start punishing their opponents, start killing the supporters of their opponents, start imprisoning their opponents. I want the African political leaders that will look at a position or a chance to lead as only a chance to offer leadership and solutions, but not a chance to enrich themselves and their families. On that one, I'll be very happy to see into it that we have a president, a king, and in most cases the presidents, who will not look at the opposition as an enemy and think about putting them into prison and think about killing their supporters. That will be the Africa that I'll be so happy to see. Number two, I want an Africa that looks at, an Africa that looks at the opportunities and want to exploit the opportunities. I not wish to have an Africa that carelessly allows people from outside come into the continent, siphon whatever they can siphon, go grow themselves, then get us the final products that we end up buying again expensively. But I want an African leadership that is able to sit down and exploit our own resources, our own potentials. The leadership that will sit down and say, end to the madness in DRC Congo, end to the madness in Libya, end to the madness in Somalia, and cut across. That an African leaders that will sit down and say, enough is enough, we want peace, we want prosperity, we want development. An African leadership that will say, these political boundaries that we are having, yes, let us respect them because they make it easy for us to lead ourselves. Because we cannot lead we cannot lead each other just as a continent that way. If we define ourselves or have ourselves in specific rooms, it becomes easy to lead ourselves. But not the leadership that will look into such political boundaries, then look at them as a reason to perceive people from a different countries as enemies, to perceive people from a different nation as not human enough. Because in so doing, then we'll be able to solve our issues as Africans. We'll be able to look at each other, then iron out our issues. To exploit our economy, our potentials, economy, and everything that we have been. Therefore, there are so many things that I would want to see come 2023. But very important, and number one in the order, if I can repeat it, our leaders, that is politicians, and those that are in power, being able to realize that their opponents are not the enemies, and they should not resort into putting them in prison, killing their opponents, but instead start looking at them as persons of interest or persons that are only interested in taking over the leadership and probably offer an alternative solution. If they are able to do that, then Africa will be able to grow. People will be able to live together as brothers and sisters. Number two, an Africa that is not defined or limited to political boundaries. Let political boundaries be there to help us govern ourselves easily, but let us not limit ourselves to the extent that we are not able to exploit the markets that we are having, that we even start thinking about facing the East, facing the West, and having the West, the East come in to exploit the market, whereas we have a neighboring country that could have supplied the products. Therefore, I wish that we are not limited by our boundaries, but political boundaries only be there to help us govern ourselves easily. Then finally, I want Pan-African spirit to grow in every person so that we are able to look at each other as persons that come from a common ancestor, as persons who should grow together, as persons who should not hate each other, as persons who will always want to see the prosperity in the continent. I yield. You're muted, Doug.
Those are too many demands, Mwalimu Wanda, and I hope some African leaders are listening. News just coming in from Kampala indicate that the Daily Monitor says there's a battle between General Muhoozi and the General Watafire. And they said, we will defeat you in 2026, Watafire says. Well, so these are the Africa we are looking at. In 2023, politics is going to be hot. Remember, it is the politics where people are shaping a destiny of replacement succession politics in Uganda. We shall look at that widely, mostly in 2023, and we shall discuss many of those as we go ahead and look looking forward to a better year. Daniel Wesonga, as we finally come down towards Jerusalem, there appear to be too many difficulties and on the front line. Yes, let's go. What do you think? What is the Africa you want now?
Thank you so much, Dr. Matsanga David. For me, my vision for the Africa I want in the year 2023 is quite brief. Only hope and wish for an Africa with restored dignity and unleashed potential. Because you realize Africa is not a poor country per se. Africa has a lot of minerals. Africa has a lot of talent. Africa has enough human capital. However, we've not been given the dignity we deserve. We've not been given the opportunity we deserve on the global arena. And this is two-faced, Dr. Matsanga. One, for us to be able to restore our dignity, it has to begin with our leadership. You cannot be given dignity if you have leaders like Paul Biya, who is almost 100 years and still not getting out of power. We cannot you cannot be given dignity if you have leaders like Ondimba, of Gabon, who is incapacitated, but still yet cannot even relinquish power. And therefore, African leaders need to behave themselves for them to be given dignity out there. And then also on the other side, we need also to be given an equal opportunity on the negotiation table by the Western powers. We need not to be having countries like Zimbabwe under sanctions long after all these things that caused the sanctions to be imposed on Zimbabwe are gone. Do we still have, why is Africa not having any vendetta with the colonialists? We've never been compensated for the years of torture, killings, barbaric, abductions, and unjust grabbing of land that happened years ago during the colonial period. We've never held any sanctions against any of the Western countries. Why is Zimbabwe, decades after, even Robert Mugabe's demise, why is Zimbabwe still grappling? And that is something that we should actually boldly speak about and against going into the year 2023, because Africa cannot be free to move into the next phase if we still have countries like Zimbabwe still suffering under the repercussions of sanctions, sins or maybe lack of it that were committed in previous regimes being carried forward to the new generations of Zimbabweans. We cannot accept that, Dr. Matsanga. I've dealt with Zimbabweans, across Africa and across the world. And I can tell you, Dr. Matsanga, it is a difficult thing being a Zimbabwean in this world, because everywhere you go, because of the sanctions, you are held like a suspect. You have always to prove that you are not in Zimbabwe. You always have to prove that you are not by any means associated by those who are targeted by these sanctions. We need to have an Africa whose full potential is unleashed, and therefore, from there, we shall be able to experience prosperity and be able to forge a path that will lead to economic independence as a continent. So therefore, Dr. Matsanga, as I even wind up, whatever vision I have for the African continent in the year 2023 is all about restoring the African dignity and unleashing the potential we have so that we can be able to stand on our own feet. I submit.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to thank you that we shall have our last show on Friday. And that show will be on 30th of December. Tomorrow, we shall look at the show. We shall replay one of the most outstanding show, an interview that I did with Nnamdi Kanu. And as you are aware, I've written a letter to His Excellency President General Muhammad Buhari that what followed Mr. Biya in London, if he doesn't agree to give us a New Year present, release this young man, he will never step in that country again. So that is all what we need to do now. You know, we are not going to fight with guns. You can't fight Buhari with guns. But we want to fight Buhari with international aspect, international caucus. I want to again thank my lawyers. We have prepared a document that we shall submit. The other time when I was telling you about the World Cup, people thought it was a joke. But Qatar has agreed that all those complaints that were filed, and you need to, they have received the filed complaints from the court. Qatar has agreed to sort it out of court. So those who are laughing at us might not laugh at us anymore. Because some of the complaints, you had a ticket, you wanted to go, you were inconvenienced, you had arranged those payments double. So I did that application jokingly. We are going to be smiling as people cry of the bite in January. Some people might be seeing the real January in good colors. So today, go back, ye, look at yourself, ye. We shall have one show tomorrow of the Twitter space. I want to take this opportunity to do the last Twitter space tomorrow at midnight. No, tomorrow at 9:15. My Twitter space, you'll see the topic and the misses, the hits and the misses of Africa 2022. I think the gentleman in the studio who is in Nairobi studio can do that Twitter without the co-host. If you can remove the co-host and because the co-host has traveled, he might not be available, and leave me alone with that topic. The hits and the misses of Africa 2022. I think, Wanda, that's a very good topic, which people will enjoy while you are sipping your meat, your drink. No, we don't forget news. There are people who say, oh, it's a holiday. There is no holiday for a man who wants a better Africa. A man who believes that I don't despair, like Lenin said, desperation is for the people who don't know the problem. But me who knows the problem of Africa, I can't despair. I just want to thank you so much, Wanda. Want to thank you, Daniel. Hopefully, we talk before the end of before Friday. I'll speak to you. Inshallah, I'm getting my fingers April. Thank you very much. God bless you. In the studios in Nairobi, our man in the control rooms, can you come and say bye-bye to us, please? Before we say cut. Yeah, in the studios in Nairobi, thank you very much. That was video engineers of Punchline for 7 years. We have been with him. He's my man. I got him. I've never given up on him. Here we are. He is Fred Kiare. Fred Kiare. That's the man in the control today, because the real others have gone on for short holiday. They are hammering their chicken and beef wherever they are, including Miriam For us, we are still here. Thank you very much in Nairobi. Take care. God bless you. God bless Punch and Line Africa Television. Talking is a solution to Africa. If you don't talk, you create a conflict. If you have a problem in your house and you don't ask your friend that there's a problem, you'll just be dying in a problem. So spread that problem to another person. If you can help, fine. If you can't, that is all what it is. Thinking about you all the time. Thank you. This station is for Africa, by Africa, with Africa. Ciao.